The words hit me like a physical punch. You are a terrible father, Mark. An absolutely terrible father. You always have been. My ex-wife Sarah stood across our old living room, the one we used to share. Her face contorted with a fury I hadn't seen since the divorce papers were signed a year ago. Her voice was ice, but it carried enough heat to melt steel. Our daughter Lily was standing right beside me, clutching the hem of my shirt. She was only 11, small for her age, and her eyes were wide, darting between us like a trapped bird. The air crackled. This wasn't one of our usual arguments about pickup times or school projects. This was different. Sarah wasn't just angry. She was delivering a verdict. And the judge, jury, and executioner in her mind were all her. I felt my face flush, a mix of shame and rage bubbling up. Shame because a part of me, the insecure part, always wondered if it was true. Rage because I knew in my heart it wasn't. Everything I did, every single day, was for Lily. How dare you say that in front of her, Sarah? I managed to choke out, my voice rough. I tightened my grip on Lily's shoulder, pulling her slightly closer. She was trembling. This was exactly what I'd tried to shield her from since the day Sarah and I decided to split. The bitterness, the blame, the constant feeling of being caught in the middle. Sarah laughed. A harsh, humorless sound. In front of her, Mark, she knows, she sees it, don't you, Lily? Lily flinched. She looked up at me, then quickly down at her sneakers, her small shoulders hunched. A knot twisted in my stomach. Had Sarah been poisoning her mind? Had I been so blind? I tried to catch Lily's eye to reassure her, but she wouldn't look up. My chest ached, with a pain deeper than anything Sarah's words could inflict. The idea that my daughter might believe her, even for a second, was unbearable. Don't put her in the middle of this, Sarah, I pleaded, my voice softer, directed more at Lily than at Sarah. Sarah stepped forward, her voice dropping to a low, venomous hiss. She's not in the middle. She's the reason. You neglect her. You don't provide for her. You are always too busy with your stupid projects or your friends. She deserves better, Mark. She deserves a father who actually cares. My mind raced through every moment, every sacrifice. The late nights working to pay for her soccer camps, the early mornings driving her to school, the weekends spent building Lego castles, or reading her favorite fantasy books. I wasn't perfect, no parent is, but I cared more than anything. I loved Lily with every fiber of my being. Her happiness, her well-being, was my absolute priority. That's not fair, I said, my voice rising again, desperate to defend myself, but more importantly, to defend Lily's perception of our relationship. I'm always there for her. I've always been there for her. Oh, really? Sarah sneered, crossing her arms. Then why did she cry last night? Why does she always look so tired when she comes back from your place? What exactly are you doing over there, Mark? Because it's not parenting. Lily's grip on my shirt tightened. I felt her small fingers digging into the fabric. She was still silent, still looking at her feet. This was a nightmare. Sarah was trying to break us, to drive a wedge between me and my daughter. The thought filled me with a cold dread. Then Lily stirred. She lifted her head slowly. Her eyes, usually so bright and full of life, were clouded with sadness and a surprising flicker of defiance. She looked at her mother, then at me. My heart pounded. What would she say? Would she agree with her mother? Mom, Lily's voice was barely a whisper, thin and fragile. That's not true. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Lily, honey, you don't have to protect him. I know he makes you feel bad sometimes, I know he doesn't listen." "He does listen," Lily insisted, her voice gaining a tiny bit of strength. "He always listens, and he always makes me laugh." She paused, took a deep breath, and then, her voice still quiet but firm, she said the words that changed everything. The words that pulled the rug out from under me and Sarah both. "Mom," Lily repeated, looking directly at her mother, "I want to live with Dad. All the time." The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah's face, which had been so full of venom just moments before, went slack with shock. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. My own breath hitched in my throat. I stared at Lily, unable to comprehend what I had just heard. All the time, she wanted to live with me. Completely. It was what I had secretly hoped for, dreamed of, but never dared to voice. Not after the messy divorce, not after Sarah had fought so hard for primary custody. Lily turned her head, her gaze meeting mine. Her eyes were still sad, but there was a fierce determination in them that I had never seen before. She gave my shirt a gentle tug. "Please, Dad," she whispered, so low that only I could hear it. "Please let me live with you." A wave of emotions washed over me. Disbelief, overwhelming relief, a surge of protective love so strong it almost buckled my knees, and a triumphant bitter joy directed at Sarah. She had called me a terrible father, used Lily as a weapon, tried to break our bond. And in response, Lily, my sweet, quiet Lily, had chosen me. Not just for a weekend, not just for a few days, but all the time. It was the most validating, heart-wrenching, incredible moment of my life. I knelt down, pulling Lily into a tight hug. She buried her face in my shoulder, and I could feel her small body trembling against mine. "Yes, honey," I murmured into her hair, my voice thick with emotion. "Yes, of course you can." Over Lily's head, I met Sarah's stunned gaze. Her shock was slowly turning into something else. Something dark and dangerous, I knew. In that moment, that this was far from over. Lily's choice was a declaration of war, and I was ready to fight it. For her, I would fight anything. Chapter 2. The firestorm begins. Sarah didn't stay stunned for long. The shock on her face quickly melted into raw, furious disbelief. "What did you just say, Lily?" she asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Her eyes, usually a calm blue, were now chips of ice. Lily pulled away from my hug, though she stayed close, her hand still clutching my shirt. She looked up at her mum, her small face determined. "I want to live with Dad, Mum. It's better there." "Better?" Sarah practically shrieked, her voice echoing in the small living room. "Better than what? Better than your own mother's house? The home you grew up in?" Her eyes snapped to me, blazing with accusation. "What have you been telling her, Mark? What lies have you been filling her head with?" I stood up, putting myself slightly in front of Lily. "I haven't told her anything, Sarah. This is her choice. Her words, her choice." Sarah scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "She's 11 years old. She doesn't know what she wants. You've manipulated her, Mark. You've turned her against me." My blood ran cold. The thought of Lily being manipulated was horrible. But the idea that Sarah thought I was the one doing it, after her own performance, was infuriating. "I would never do that," I said, my voice low and steady, trying to keep the anger out of it for Lily's sake. "Unlike you, I don't use our daughter as a pawn in our arguments." That last jab landed. Sarah recoiled as if I had slapped her. Her face went from furious to white with rage. "It's already happened, Mom," Lily interjected, her voice surprisingly strong. "I already chose." She looked exhausted, but also resolute. The weight of her decision was clearly on her small shoulders, yet she carried it with an air of conviction that surprised us both. Sarah stared at Lily, her expression a mix of betrayal and disbelief. It was clear she hadn't expected this level of defiance from our usually quiet daughter. "You'll change your mind, sweetie," she said, her voice softening, trying a new tactic: manipulation through guilt. "You'll miss me. You'll miss your room, your friends in this neighborhood. This is your home, Lilybug." Lily shook her head slowly. "No, Mom. I won't change my mind. I am sad sometimes at your house. I am lonely." That last word, lonely, hung in the air, a tiny devastating bomb. It hit Sarah hard. Her face crumpled just for a second before she rebuilt her defenses. But I saw it. I saw the truth in Lily's eyes, and I knew why she had made her choice. It wasn't about what I provided. It was about what she felt. "This is because you don't like my new boyfriend, isn't it?" Sarah accused, her eyes flashing back to me. "You've put her up to this, telling her horrible things about David." "I haven't said a word about David, Sarah," I replied honestly. I had tried to be civil about her new relationship, focusing only on how it affected Lily. I didn't want to be the reason for more drama. But the truth was, David was not a good fit for Lily. He was loud, dismissive, and seemed to view Lily as an inconvenience. Lily had mentioned a few things in passing: how he ate her favorite snacks, how he changed the television channel when she was watching something, how he never really talked to her. Minor things, but to a sensitive child, they added up. "It's not just David, Mom," Lily added, surprising us both again. "It's everything. You are always busy, you are always on the phone. You don't play with me anymore. Dad always plays with me. We build Legos, we watch movies together. He cooks my favorite pasta." Sarah's face hardened. She wasn't listening to Lily. She was listening to her own anger. "You think your father is better, do you? You think he's going to be there for you every single day? He has a job, Lily. He has his own life. He's not going to be able to give you what I can." "He gives me time," Lily said quietly, her voice unwavering. "And he doesn't yell at me." The accusation of yelling hung heavy in the air. I knew Sarah had a temper, and I suspected it had gotten worse since David moved in. But to hear Lily say it, to confirm my fears, was chilling. Sarah gasped, truly hurt this time. "I don't yell at you, Lily. I just get frustrated sometimes because you don't listen." "You do yell, Mom," Lily insisted, her lower lip trembling slightly. "And you make me feel like I am a problem." That was it. The dam broke. Sarah stared at her daughter, her eyes filling with tears of what looked like genuine hurt, mixed with indignation. But I also saw the flicker of something else. The realization that her little girl was not going to be swayed. This wasn't a tantrum. This was a decision. "Fine," Sarah spat, turning away from us both, grabbing her purse from the couch. Her voice was thick with suppressed emotion. "If this is what you want, Lily, then fine. But don't come crying to me when you realize what a mistake you've made." She glared at me over her shoulder. "And you, Mark. Don't think this is going to be easy. My lawyer will be in touch. We'll see what the courts have to say about this." And with that, she stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her, leaving Lily and me in a stunned silence. Lily finally let go of my shirt and wrapped her arms around my waist, burying her face against my stomach. I held her close, stroking her hair. She was shaking, and I could feel the silent tears dampening my shirt. "Are you sure about this, honey?" I asked gently, wanting to make sure she wasn't just reacting to the argument. I wanted her to be truly sure. She nodded, her voice muffled. "I want to be with you, Dad. I miss you when I am not with you." My heart swelled. I kissed the top of her head. "Okay, sweetie. Then we'll make it happen. No matter what, we'll be a team. The rest of the evening was a strange mix of relief and anxiety. Lily was quieter than usual, clearly processing the confrontation. I tried to make things as normal as possible, cooking her favorite meal and letting her choose the movie. But the tension lingered. Sarah's threat to call her lawyer was not an empty one. I knew she would fight this with everything she had. She was a master of legal battles, having won primary custody in the divorce. I spent most of the night researching custody laws, contacting my own lawyer, and preparing for the fight ahead. I didn't care what it cost, what I had to do. Lily had chosen me, and I would make sure her choice was honored. The battle lines had been drawn, and the firestorm had just begun. I was ready to face it for her. The next few weeks were a blur of phone calls, legal advice, and the heavy anticipation of what was to come. Sarah, true to her word, had immediately engaged her lawyer. My lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Miss Davies, assured me that Lily's expressed preference, especially given her age, would carry significant weight with the judge. Still, Sarah was relentless. She filed motions, demanded psychological evaluations, and even tried to paint me as an unstable, manipulative parent. It was ugly, and it was draining. But every time I looked at Lily, quietly doing her homework at my kitchen table, or giggling at a movie we watched together, I found the strength to keep fighting. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the judge reviewed everything. Sarah presented her arguments, painting a picture of me as neglectful and irresponsible. She brought up old minor incidents, twisting them into grand failures. My lawyer presented my case, focusing on my consistent care for Lily, the stable environment I offered, and most importantly, Lily's clear and unambiguous desire to live with me. Lily herself was asked to speak to a judge in chambers, a conversation I wasn't privy to, but I knew she would tell the truth. The judge ruled in our favor. Full custody was granted to me, with Sarah having scheduled visitation. It was a victory, but a bittersweet one. I knew it would only fuel Sarah's resentment. The day Lily officially moved in felt like a New Year's Day and a relief, all rolled into one. Her small room, which had always been ready for her weekend visits, was now filled with her familiar things. Her favorite stuffed animals, her collection of fantasy books, the drawings she had taped to the walls. We spent the afternoon organizing her clothes in the dresser, her school supplies on her desk. She chatted happily, pointing out where everything should go, already making the space truly her own. "It feels good, Dad," she said, looking around her room, a genuine smile on her face. "It feels like home." That simple sentence made all the legal battles, all the emotional strain worth it. This was home. For both of us, the first few days were surprisingly smooth. We fell into a comfortable rhythm. Mornings were a flurry of breakfast and getting ready for school. I'd drop her off, then head to my own work. Afternoons were homework, a healthy snack, and then some time for fun. Evenings were dinner, usually a movie or a board game, and then her bedtime routine. It was simple, but it was ours. But as the initial excitement settled, the challenges started to surface. I had always been good at the fun dad role during our weekend visits. Now, I was the full-time parent. That meant dealing with everything. The occasional missed homework assignment, the forgotten permission slip, the grumpy mornings, the mood swings, the pre-teen angst. I learned quickly that being a parent wasn't just about fun. It was about consistency, boundaries, and endless patience. One evening, Lily came home from school looking unusually downcast. She usually bounced through the door, eager to tell me about her day. Today she shuffled in, dropped her backpack with a thud, and went straight to her room. I followed her, knocking gently on her half-open door. "Hey, everything okay, sweetie?" She was sitting on her bed, staring out the window. "It's nothing, Dad." Her voice was small. "Doesn't sound like nothing. Talk to me." I sat on the edge of her bed. She fidgeted, picking at a loose thread on her blanket. "It's just at school. Jessica asked me why I don't live with Mom anymore. And then another girl, Sarah, said her mom told her that my mom was really sad and missed me, and that you made me move." My heart sank. Sarah was already working on the narrative, spreading her version of the story through school gossip. This was exactly what I had feared. It wasn't enough for her to lose in court. She wanted to poison Lily's social life too. "What did you tell them?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Lily shrugged. "I just said that I wanted to live with you because I was happier here. But they looked at me weird, like I was a bad kid for leaving my mom." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Am I, Dad? Am I a bad kid?" I pulled her into a hug, stroking her hair. "No, honey. Absolutely not. You are not a bad kid. You made a brave choice for yourself, a choice that made you feel safe and happy. And that is never a bad thing. People might not understand, and your mom might try to make them think things, but you know the truth, and I know the truth." She sniffled against my shoulder. "It just feels weird, like everyone's looking at me." "It's okay to feel weird," I said, pulling back slightly to look her in the eyes. "Change is hard, but we'll get through it together. And anyone who judges you for wanting to be happy isn't a real friend anyway." She nodded slowly, a tiny bit of her usual sparkle returning. Okay, this was the new reality. It wasn't just about making sure she had dinner and clean clothes. It was about protecting her emotional well-being from the lingering fallout of the divorce, from her mother's bitterness, and from the confusion of her peers. It was a bigger job than I had anticipated, but looking at her, seeing her trust in me, I knew I was up for it. We had made it through the legal battle. Now, we had to navigate the daily reality, one difficult conversation, one comforting hug, one moment of reassurance at a time. This was our new beginning, full of love, but also laced with quiet challenges. Quiet challenges from Chapter 3 didn't stay quiet for long. Sarah, it seemed, couldn't accept the court's decision. Her scheduled visitations with Lily became less about spending quality time and more about trying to chip away at Lily's resolve. Or worse, to gather ammunition against me. Lily would come back from her visits with her mother looking drained, sometimes visibly upset. She'd be quieter, less engaged, and sometimes even a little distant. It was like a cloud followed her home from Sarah's house. I'd try to gently ask what happened, but Lily would often just shrug and say, "Mom was just Mom." One Saturday evening, after a particularly long and tense visitation with Sarah, Lily came home and immediately went to her room. I gave her some space, then brought her a bowl of her favorite ice cream. I found her curled up on her bed, clutching her old teddy bear. Her eyes were red and puffy. "What happened, sweetie?" I asked, my heart aching to see her like this. She took a shaky breath. "Mom told me she said you were lying to the judge. She said you paid me to say I wanted to live with you." Her voice was barely audible, thick with tears. My blood ran cold. This was a new low, even for Sarah. To accuse me of bribing our daughter, and to plant that seed of doubt in Lily's mind, was truly despicable. "Lily, look at me," I said, sitting beside her on the bed. "Do you believe that?" She looked up, her eyes wide and wet. "I don't know, Dad." She said it so strongly. She said you always manipulate people to get what you want. The words were like daggers, not just because they were false, but because they came from Sarah, twisting Lily's mind. "Lily, honey, remember what we talked about? Your choice was brave. It was your own." No one paid you, no one forced you. You told the judge how you felt, because that's what you wanted to do. Do you remember feeling that way? She nodded slowly. Yes, She said I'd regret it. She said she was so sad without me that I broke her heart. This was the manipulation I feared most. Guilt. Sarah was laying it on thick, trying to make Lily feel responsible for her mother's unhappiness. Lily, your mom's feelings are not your responsibility. She's an adult. It's not your job to make her happy. Your job is to be a happy, healthy kid. And my job is to make sure you have a place where you can be that. But she cried, Dad, Lily whispered, fresh tears rolling down her cheeks. She cried and said she missed me so much, and that her house felt empty without me, and that I was selfish for leaving her. My jaw tightened. Honey, it is never selfish to choose what's best for you. Your mom is sad, and I understand that. It's hard for her, but that doesn't mean your choice was wrong. You chose a place where you feel loved, safe, and happy. And that's a good choice, Lily. A very good choice. I hugged her tightly, letting her cry into my shoulder. I hated that Sarah was doing this to her. I hated that Lily had to carry this burden. This wasn't just about custody anymore. It was about protecting Lily's emotional landscape from Sarah's poisonous words. After that incident, I spoke with Miss Davies again. She advised me to document everything Sarah said during visitations, especially anything that seemed like emotional manipulation. She also suggested we consider supervised visitations if this behavior continued. The thought of that felt drastic, but I was willing to do whatever it took to protect Lily. The next visitation was scheduled for the following weekend. As the day approached, Lily grew more and more anxious. She started having trouble sleeping, and her appetite dwindled. She even seemed reluctant to go to school, fearing more questions or comments from her friends. Dad, she said one morning, her voice small, do I have to go to Mom's this weekend? It broke my heart to hear her ask that. She has visitation rights, honey. But if something is making you uncomfortable, you need to tell me. We can talk to Miss Davies about it. It's just I don't like how she talks about you, and how she makes me feel bad for choosing you. She looked down at her hands, twisting her fingers. And David is always there. David, the new boyfriend. I hadn't brought him up, wanting to keep him out of it if possible. But he was clearly part of the picture for Lily. What about David, honey? She hesitated, then said, he's always on his phone. And he yells at Mom sometimes. And he always makes fun of my drawings. She gestured vaguely towards the colorful artwork on her bedroom walls. He says they're childish. Mom doesn't say anything. She just laughs with him. My chest tightened with anger. Mocking an 11-year-old's artwork was a low blow, and Sarah letting it happen was even worse. This was more than just emotional manipulation. It was neglect of Lily's emotional well-being. This was why she chose me. You don't have to go this weekend. I am going to call Miss Davies right now, and we're going to figure out how to make sure you feel safe and comfortable during your visits. Your feelings matter more than anything. The relief on her face was immediate and profound. She threw her arms around me, hugging me tightly. Thank you, Dad. That weekend, after talking with Miss Davies, I sent a formal letter to Sarah's lawyer, stating Lily's discomfort and our intention to request supervised visits. Unless Sarah agreed to cease the manipulative behavior and ensure David did not interact negatively with Lily. The ghost of the past, Sarah's lingering presence and influence, was still trying to haunt us. But with Lily's trust and my unwavering determination, we were ready to exercise it for good. We had built a loving home, and I wouldn't let anything or anyone threaten it. Pulling Lily from her scheduled visit with Sarah was a big step, but it was absolutely necessary. Miss Davies had warned me it would escalate things, and she was right. Sarah called me in a rage, leaving angry voicemails, accusing me of alienating Lily, of trying to cut her out of Lily's life completely. But for once, I didn't engage. I just forwarded the messages to my lawyer and focused on Lily. The immediate relief in Lily was palpable. She slept better, ate more, and slowly the quiet anxiety that had shadowed her began to lift. We spent that weekend doing all the things that made our house a home. We baked cookies, messy and delicious, the kitchen filled with flour and laughter. We built an elaborate Lego spaceship that took up half the living room floor. We had a movie marathon, complete with popcorn and blankets. It wasn't anything grand, but it was consistent, comforting, and filled with genuine connection. I realized then that building a home wasn't just about the physical space. It was about building a safe, emotionally rich environment. It was about creating routines that brought comfort, not chaos. It was about fostering open communication, where Lily knew she could talk about anything, big or small, without judgment. I started making conscious efforts to enhance our routine. Every morning we'd have breakfast together. No phones, just talking about our day ahead. After school, I'd make sure I was home or close by, so she didn't come back to an empty house. We started a new tradition of Friday night adventures. Sometimes it was a new park, sometimes a mini golf course, sometimes just a drive to get ice cream. Simple things, but they were ours. Lily started to blossom. Her grades, which had dipped slightly during the custody battle, began to improve. She reconnected with friends, no longer burdened by the fear of their judgment. She even started taking art classes again, something she had loved but stopped when she was living with Sarah. She'd come home, eyes sparkling, eager to show me her latest sketch or painting. "Look, Dad," she'd exclaim, holding up a drawing. "The art teacher said I have a really unique style." "You absolutely do, honey," I'd say, genuinely impressed. Her drawings were vibrant, imaginative, full of personality, and I remembered David's dismissive comments about them being childish. It infuriated me all over again. Here, her creativity was celebrated. Our communication deepened. She started sharing more about her day, about her worries, about her dreams. We talked about everything from her favorite video game, to the struggles her friends were having, to the latest science project at school. I wasn't just her dad, I was her confidant, her cheerleader, her safe harbor. One evening we were sitting on the couch watching a nature documentary. Lily leaned her head on my shoulder. "Dad," she mumbled. "Yeah, sweetie. Remember when Mom said you were a terrible father?" My stomach clenched, but I kept my voice even. "I do." She was wrong. My breath hit. I looked down at her and she looked up at me, a soft, sure smile on her face. "You are the best dad in the whole world. You make me feel safe and happy." Tears pricked my eyes. Those words, spoken so simply and sincerely, were worth more than any court ruling, any victory. It was the affirmation I hadn't realized I so desperately needed. "You make me pretty happy too, kiddo," I said, my voice thick. I hugged her close. Meanwhile, Sarah's lawyer had responded to our request for supervised visitation. They were vehemently against it, of course, claiming it was an overreaction and an attempt to alienate. They proposed mediation instead. Miss Davies thought it was a good idea to try mediation first, as it showed a willingness to cooperate and could be less emotionally taxing than another court battle. I agreed, hoping that a neutral third party might make Sarah see reason, or at least understand the impact of her actions on Lily. The stark contrast between our home and Sarah's situation became clearer during this time. Lily no longer mentioned David, which I took as a good sign. But Sarah's calls to Lily became less frequent, and when they did happen, they were often brief and ended with Lily looking forlorn. It seemed Sarah was still struggling to accept Lily's choice, and perhaps her own part in it. The silence from Sarah, though, was almost a relief. It gave us space to breathe, to truly build our bond without constant interference. The house was no longer just a place I lived. It was our sanctuary. The walls held laughter. The kitchen smelled of homemade meals, and every corner reflected Lily's personality. We were a team navigating school projects, minor arguments, and the occasional burst of teenage angst. I was learning to be a full-time father, not just a weekend one, and with every passing day, I felt more confident, more capable. Lily wasn't just living with me, she was thriving, and that was the most important thing. Brick by brick, laugh by laugh, we were building our home, strong and full of love. The mediation session was scheduled for a Tuesday afternoon, a week after Lily told me I was the best dad in the whole world. I felt a cautious optimism. Maybe, just maybe, Sarah would finally see that Lily's well-being was paramount, and that her attempts to undermine our bond were only hurting Lily. That Tuesday morning, Lily seemed a little more subdued than usual at breakfast. I attributed it to the general tension surrounding the upcoming mediation. I dropped her off at school, gave her a hug, and headed to work. Around 10:30 a.m., my phone rang. It was the school principal, Miss Jenkins. Her voice was grave. "Mr. Miller, we have a situation here with Lily. Could you please come to the school?" My heart leapt into my throat. "Is she hurt? What happened?" "She's not physically hurt, but she's very distressed. Your ex-wife is here. There was an incident." A cold dread spread through me, Sarah. Of course. What had she done now? I told Miss Jenkins I was on my way, and sped to the school, my mind racing through every possible scenario. When I arrived, the principal's office was tense. Miss Jenkins sat behind her desk, looking weary. Sarah was perched stiffly on a chair, her arms crossed, a defiant look on her face. Lily was sitting on a smaller chair in the corner, her back to us, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "Lily, honey," I said, rushing to her side. I knelt down and gently put my hand on her back. She flinched, then slowly turned. Her face was tear-streaked and blotchy, her eyes swollen. "Dad," she whispered, throwing her arms around my neck, burying her face in my shoulder. Her small body trembled. "What happened here, Miss Jenkins?" I asked, my voice tight with concern and anger. Miss Jenkins sighed. "Mrs. Miller arrived unannounced this morning. She went directly to Lily's classroom, interrupting class, demanding to speak with Lily. She accused Lily's teacher of not doing enough to help Lily through this difficult time, and then proceeded to tell Lily in front of the entire class that she was making a terrible mistake living with you, and that she was hurting her mother deeply." My blood ran cold. In front of the entire class, the humiliation Lily must have felt. The public shaming. It was beyond cruel. I asked Mrs. Miller to leave the classroom immediately, but she refused, insisting she had a right to speak to her daughter. Miss Jenkins continued, her gaze fixed on Sarah. She then became quite agitated, raising her voice, and accused the school of favoring you, Mr. Miller. It was very disruptive. Eventually, I had to call security to escort her to my office. Sarah scoffed. "I just wanted to see my daughter, and they wouldn't let me." "Lily, tell him. They wouldn't let me talk to you privately." Lily lifted her head from my shoulder, her eyes blazing with a mixture of fear and anger. "You embarrassed me, Mom. Everyone was looking. You made me cry in front of everyone. Sarah's face flushed. I was just trying to help you, Lily. You are clearly not happy here. Look at you. You are miserable. I am not miserable. Lily cried, pulling away from me and standing up. She looked small, but her voice was surprisingly strong. I was happy until you showed up and yelled at me and made me feel like a bad person again. I told you I wanted to live with Dad. Why won't you just leave me alone? The raw pain and frustration in Lily's voice hit Sarah like a physical blow. Sarah's face went pale, and she seemed to shrink in her chair. The accusation of bad person clearly resonated from their earlier arguments. Miss Jenkins stepped in. Mrs. Miller, this behavior is unacceptable. You are not to come to this school unannounced again. All communication regarding Lily must go through Mr. Miller, or through official channels with the school administration. If this happens again, we will be forced to take further action, including contacting Child Protective Services, if we believe this is causing emotional harm to Lily. Sarah opened her mouth to protest, but Miss Jenkins held up a hand, firm and unyielding. The mediation appointment is this afternoon, Mrs. Miller. I suggest you discuss your grievances there, rather than subjecting Lily to this kind of public display. I put my arm around Lily, who was still trembling. Come on, honey. Let's go home. As we walked out, I could feel Sarah's furious gaze on my back. Lily leaned against me, her small body heavy with exhaustion and fear. In the car, Lily was quiet for a long time. Then she finally spoke, her voice flat. She just doesn't get it, Dad. She never will. I know, sweetie, I said, my heart heavy. But you handled yourself so bravely in there. I am incredibly proud of you. She looked up at me, a flicker of pride in her tear-filled eyes. I just want her to stop. I just want to be normal. We will be normal, Lily. I promised, though I wasn't sure how. We'll get through this. The school incident cemented my resolve. This wasn't just about the practicalities of co-parenting. It was about protecting Lily from her mother's increasingly erratic and harmful behavior. This was emotional abuse, plain and simple. I recounted the school incident, providing Miss Jenkins' statement as evidence. Sarah tried to deny, to minimize, to deflect. But the mediator, a kind but sharp woman, wasn't buying it. She looked at Sarah, then at me, and then stated the obvious. Lily's emotional well-being was clearly at risk during interactions with her mother. The mediator proposed a new arrangement. All future visits would be supervised, either by a professional agency or a mutually agreed-upon third party. Sarah bristled, outraged, but the mediator was unyielding. She made it clear that if Sarah didn't agree, the next step would be back to court, where her recent behavior would only strengthen my case for supervised visits, or even a full suspension of visitation, until Sarah addressed her issues. Sarah, defeated, finally agreed, though grudgingly. She glared at me, a promise of future retribution in her eyes. But I didn't care. Lily's safety and peace were paramount. The school incident had been a painful reminder of how vulnerable Lily still was, but it had also strengthened her own voice. She had stood up to her mother in public and declared her truth, and that, more than anything, gave me hope. We had weathered the storm. For now, the immediate aftermath of the school incident and the mediation was a strange, fragile piece. Sarah agreed to supervised visits, but she made it clear through her lawyer that she wasn't happy about it. The first few supervised visits were tense. A neutral third party, a retired social worker, observed them. Sarah was on her best behavior, overly sweet and a little stiff, but Lily remained wary. She kept a small emotional distance, a shield I understood completely. The visits were shorter, less frequent, and thankfully less emotionally draining for Lily. Despite the relative calm, I knew this wasn't sustainable on my own. constant legal battles, the emotional toll on Lily, and the stress of being a full-time single dad was starting to wear on me. I realized I needed support, not just for Lily, but for myself too. I started by looking into therapy for Lily. She had been through so much, and while she was resilient, I worried about the long-term impact of her mother's actions. I found a child therapist specializing in family separation and trauma. Lily was hesitant at first, but after one session she admitted it felt good to talk to someone who wasn't me or her mom. Someone who just listened without judgment. She understands, Dad. Lily told me after her second session, a lightness in her voice I hadn't heard in a while. She said it's okay to feel sad about Mom, even if I don't want to live with her, and that it's okay to be angry too. Hearing that brought a wave of relief over me. Lily finally had a safe space to process the complex emotions she was holding inside. It wasn't just about the immediate crisis. It was about her long-term healing. Seeing the positive impact on Lily, I decided to take my own advice. I was always the strong one, the one who had to fix everything. But I was tired. I was angry. And sometimes I was scared. I found a therapist for myself, someone who specialized in co-parenting and navigating high-conflict divorces. My first session was surprisingly cathartic. I talked about everything. The initial shock of Sarah's accusation, the pain of Lily's choice, the frustration of Sarah's manipulation, the fear of not being enough for Lily. My therapist listened patiently, then offered insights I hadn't considered. "It's important to remember, Mark," she said, her voice calm and reassuring, "that Sarah's behavior is not a reflection of your worth as a father. It's a reflection of her own issues. You are doing an incredible job providing a stable, loving environment for Lily. And her choice to live with you is the clearest evidence of that." She also gave me strategies for managing Sarah's continued attempts to stir trouble, advising me to maintain firm boundaries and to communicate strictly through our lawyers when possible. She stressed the importance of taking care of myself, physically, emotionally, and mentally, so I could continue to be the best father for Lily. I also started attending a single-parent support group. It was daunting at first, walking into a room full of strangers and sharing my story. But hearing others talk about their struggles, their triumphs, and their frustrations made me feel less alone. I realized that my situation, while unique in its specifics, shared common threads with countless other parents navigating the complexities of modern family life. I got practical advice, emotional support, and a sense of community that I hadn't realized I was missing. One evening, after Lily was asleep, I sat in the quiet living room, reflecting on how far we'd come. 6 months ago, I was just a weekend dad, hurt by a cruel accusation. Now, I was a full-time father, navigating school, emotional challenges, and legal battles, all while striving to create a nurturing home. It was hard work, harder than I had ever imagined, but it was also the most rewarding thing I had ever done. Lily's laughter filled the house more often now. Her artwork covered the refrigerator. Her school projects were proudly displayed on shelves. Trust in me was unwavering, and her confidence was growing every day. We were a unit, a team, stronger together than we ever would have been apart. The support system I was building, Lily's therapist, my therapist, and the support group was like a safety net, catching me when I stumbled and reminding me that I wasn't alone. It was a stark contrast to Sarah, who seemed to be isolating herself further with her anger and denial. She was still fighting a battle, but it was a battle against reality, against Lily's truth, and ultimately against herself. I knew there would still be bumps in the road, more challenges to face. But for the first time in a long time, I felt truly equipped to handle them. I was a father, not just by title but by action, by love, and by the sheer, stubborn will to protect my daughter. And with Lily thriving, with her bright eyes and confident smile, I knew that seeking help, acknowledging my own vulnerabilities, was the strongest thing I could have done. It wasn't just about being a good father. It was about being a healthy, whole person for my daughter. The supervised visits continued, a strained and artificial ritual. Sarah remained cold, distant, occasionally trying to slip in a barbed comment to Lily. But the supervisor was always there, a silent guardian. Lily mostly tolerated them, finding ways to politely disengage when her mother's attempts at manipulation became too obvious. But the truth was, Sarah's influence was waning. Lily was thriving in our home, her world expanding beyond the conflict. Then, about a year after Lily had chosen to live with me, Sarah's lawyer scheduled a formal review hearing. This wasn't about changing custody. It was a scheduled check-in by the court to see how the new arrangement was working. I knew Sarah would use it as a platform for one last desperate attempt to regain control. The day of the hearing arrived, heavy with anticipation. Lily, now 12, decided she wanted to come with me. Not to speak to the judge, but just to be present, to show her resolve. I was hesitant, worried it would be too stressful for her, but she insisted. "I want her to see that I am happy, Dad," she said, her chin set firmly. "I want her to see that her words didn't break me. How could I say no to that?" We sat in the waiting room, Lily clutching my hand, her small presence a powerful anchor. Sarah walked in with her lawyer, her eyes sweeping over us. She looked thinner, more drawn, her eyes holding a deep resentment. She barely acknowledged us. In the courtroom, it was the same judge who had granted me custody. Sarah's lawyer started, of course spinning a tale of parental alienation, of my supposed manipulation of Lily. She argued that the supervised visits were unnecessary, that I was denying Sarah her rights as a mother, and that Lily was being emotionally abused by me. The old accusations, rehashed and repackaged. I listened calmly, my therapist's words echoing in my mind. "It's not about you, it's about her." My lawyer, Miss Davies, then presented our case. She brought up the school incident, backed by Miss Jenkins' official statement. She presented the reports from Lily's therapist, detailing Lily's progress and her consistent, unwavering desire to live in my home. She highlighted the positive changes in Lily's well-being, her improved grades, her renewed social life, her creative pursuits. She even presented a brief statement from the supervised visit supervisor, noting Sarah's difficult behavior and Lily's emotional disengagement during visits. Finally, the judge turned to Sarah. "Mrs. Miller, do you have anything to add?" Sarah rose, her voice tight with suppressed emotion. "Yes, Your Honor, I just want my daughter back. Mr. Miller has turned her against me. He's a terrible father, and he always has been. He puts his own selfish needs above Lily's. He's denying her a proper mother, a proper home." Her voice cracked with what sounded like genuine pain, but it was laced with the familiar bitterness. Lily needs her mother. She needs me. My heart ached for Lily, who was sitting beside me listening to these words. I felt her hand tighten in mine. The judge looked at Sarah, then at Lily, then back at Sarah. "Mrs. Miller, the court has reviewed all the evidence. It's clear that Lily is thriving in Mr. Miller's care. Her grades have improved, her emotional state is stable, and she has explicitly stated, both to the court and to her therapist, her desire to live with her father. Her wishes are paramount at her age." Sarah started to protest, but the judge held up a hand. "Your attempts to undermine Lily's relationship with her father and to make her feel responsible for your own unhappiness are deeply concerning." Sarah's face flushed. But he's a terrible father, she hissed, the words slipping out without thought. The judge's gaze sharpened. Mrs. Miller, the court has seen no evidence to support that claim. On the contrary, Mr. Miller has demonstrated a consistent commitment to Lily's well-being and has provided a stable, nurturing environment. Lily's choice is a testament to that. Then the judge did something unexpected. She looked directly at Lily. Lily, is there anything you would like to say to the court? Lily, who had been quiet, took a deep breath. She looked at me, and I gave her a small, encouraging nod. Then she turned to the judge, her voice clear and strong. Your Honor, my dad isn't a terrible father. He's the best father. He listens to me. He plays with me. He makes me feel safe, and I want to live with him. I am happy here. She then looked directly at her mother, her eyes full of a sorrowful understanding. Mom, I am sorry you are sad, but I have to choose what's best for me, and that's living with Dad. The silence that followed was absolute. Sarah's face crumpled. Bravado, the anger, the defiance, all drained away, replaced by a raw, naked pain. It was the first time I had ever seen her truly defeated. Her own daughter, in front of a judge, had delivered the final verdict. The judge cleared her throat. Given all the evidence, and most importantly, Lily's clear and consistent wishes, the current custody arrangement will remain in place. The supervised visitation will continue indefinitely, with quarterly reviews, unless Mrs. Miller can demonstrate a significant change in behavior and a willingness to engage in therapy to address the emotional distress she is causing Lily. Sarah said nothing. She simply sat there. Tears streaming down her face finally broke. Lily had found her voice, and with that voice she had liberated herself, and in doing so had liberated me too. We had won. Not just the legal battle, but the emotional one. The final confrontation had ended, not with a bang, but with a quiet, undeniable truth spoken from the heart of a child. Court ruling, while a clear victory, left an unsettling silence in its wake. Sarah didn't rage or scream this time. She simply left the courtroom, her lawyer hurrying after her, leaving us with a lingering feeling of finality. And for me, a strange mix of relief and pity. Pity for the woman who had lost so much, not just Lily, but perhaps a part of herself in her bitterness. Lily was quiet on the ride home. She leaned her head against the window, watching the world go by. I didn't push her to talk. She had been incredibly brave in court, and she deserved the space to process it. When we got home, I suggested we do something simple, something that always brought her comfort. How about we make your favorite pizza tonight? The one with extra cheese and pepperoni? She smiled faintly. Okay, Dad, that sounds good. As we kneaded the dough, grated the cheese, and laughed at our messy efforts, the tension slowly began to dissipate. Kitchen filled with warmth and the comforting scent of baking pizza. It felt like coming home after a long journey, shedding heavy armor, and finally being able to breathe. The days that followed felt lighter, freer. Sarah's calls became even more infrequent, and eventually they stopped altogether. The supervised visits continued for a few months, but they were awkward, brief encounters. After a few more months, Sarah's lawyer formally requested to suspend visitation indefinitely, stating that Sarah needed time to address her own issues. It was a sad ending to a fraught relationship, but it brought an undeniable peace to our home. The absence of Sarah's constant interference was like a heavy cloud lifting from our lives. Lily truly blossomed. She was no longer walking on eggshells, no longer carrying the burden of her mother's unhappiness. Her creativity soared. She joined the school's drama club, something she would never have considered before, and discovered a natural talent for acting. She spent hours in her room, not just drawing, but writing stories, and even composing short pieces of music on a small keyboard I bought her. Her relationships with her friends deepened. She no longer had to navigate awkward questions about her parents. She was just Lily, a happy, thriving kid with passions and dreams. As for me, I felt a confidence in my parenting that I hadn't known before. The support group, my therapist, and most importantly, Lily's unwavering trust had forged me into a better father, a better person. I learned to be present, to listen, and to always put Lily's emotional well-being above all else. We had our disagreements, as all parents and teenagers do, but they were healthy, quickly resolved, and always ended with understanding and affection. One afternoon, I found Lily sitting at her desk, humming quietly as she sketched in a notebook. Sunlight streamed through her window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. Her room was a reflection of her vibrant personality, colorful drawings taped to the walls, books spilling from shelves. A comfortable chaos that spoke of a happy, active mind. I leaned against the doorframe, just watching her for a moment, feeling an immense wave of gratitude wash over me. She looked up, her eyes bright. "Hey, Dad, what's up?" "Nothing," I said, walking in and sitting on the edge of her bed. "Just enjoying the peace and quiet." She grinned. "It is pretty quiet, isn't it? Sometimes I still expect Mom to call and start yelling." "Me too," I admitted. "But it's okay. We're in a good place now, kiddo. We earned this peace." She nodded, then looked back at her drawing. "It was really scary, you know, telling her I wanted to live with you, and then saying it in court." "I know it was," I said, my voice soft. "But you were incredibly brave. You stood up for yourself, and I am so proud of you for that." She looked at her drawing again, then picked up a colored pencil. "She still calls you a terrible father sometimes in my head when I think about it." She said it matter-of-factly, without emotion. "And what do you say back to that voice?" I asked, curious. Lily paused, sketching a line. "I say, no, he's not. He's my dad, and he's the best," and then the voice goes away. My breath hitched, my heart swelled with a love so profound it hurt. She had internalized the truth. She had found her own way to silence the ghost of her mother's cruel words. This wasn't just a house, it was a sanctuary. We had built it brick by brick, moment by moment, through laughter and tears, through legal battles and quiet conversation. It was a testament to resilience, to unconditional love, and to the unwavering bond between a father and his daughter. The peace we now enjoyed was hard-won, cherished, and deeply, truly earned. It's been 3 years since Lily chose to live with me. 3 years since Sarah called me a terrible father, and Lily became my full-time reason for breathing. Lily is now 15, blossoming into a confident, insightful, and incredibly talented young woman. Quiet, anxious girl who clutched my shirt in Sarah's living room is almost unrecognizable. She's tall now, with long, wavy brown hair that she's always experimenting with. Her laugh is richer, more frequent, and genuinely joyful. Her artwork, which once adorned only her bedroom walls, now takes up half of our living room. She's leaning towards studying fine arts in college, and her portfolio is already impressive. She still loves Legos, though now it's more about intricate, adult-level builds that challenge her engineering mind. Art Friday night adventures have evolved into trying new, quirky restaurants or exploring indie movie theaters. Our home is a testament to the life we've built. It's filled with her energy, her projects, her music, her friends. There are always art supplies on the kitchen counter, books stacked on every available surface, and the faint scent of her favorite incense wafting from her room. It's a home, truly in every sense of the word. I am a different man too. Constant fear of not being enough, of failing Lily, has largely faded. I've learned that being a good father isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, adaptable, and unconditionally loving. It's about listening, even when her teenage thoughts make no sense, and supporting her dreams even when they seem daunting. I still see my therapist occasionally, just to keep myself grounded, and the support group remains a valuable resource. I even mentor a new father in the group now, sharing my story and lessons learned. Sarah's presence in our lives is minimal, almost non-existent. She never resumed her visits. Sometimes a holiday card arrives, usually brief and generic, addressed to Lily. Lily responds with a simple, polite text message. But here is no longing, no deep emotional connection there anymore. It's a sad reality, but it's a reality Lily has made peace with. She understands that her mother is on her own journey, and that her own happiness is not dependent on her mother's. One evening, Lily and I were sitting on the porch swing, watching the sunset. It was a warm summer night, crickets chirping in the distance. "Dad," she said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Yeah, kiddo. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I didn't choose you?" I paused, thinking about it. Sometimes I think about how different things would be. But I also know that you made the right choice for yourself. And that's all that matters. She nodded, leaning her head on my shoulder, a gesture that still melted my heart. "I am glad I did. I wouldn't be me if I hadn't. And I wouldn't be me either," I said softly. "You taught me more about being a father than I ever thought possible. You made me better." She smiled, a genuine, radiant smile. "You always were the best, Dad. Even when Mom said you weren't." The words, so familiar, so laden with history, no longer carried a sting. They were just a memory, a marker of how far we'd come. The accusation had been a catalyst, a painful event that led to an unimaginable blessing. It had forced a decision, a choice that revealed the true nature of our bond. I looked out at the darkening sky, a sense of profound contentment washing over me. Being called a terrible father had been a shocking, hurtful accusation. But in the end, it had been a lie, proven false by the most important judge of all, my daughter. Her choice to live with me, her decision to choose happiness and stability, was the greatest validation a father could ever ask for. Our story wasn't perfect, but it was ours, built on love, resilience, and the unwavering truth of a daughter's heart. And as I held her close, I knew, with absolute certainty, that this was just the beginning of our beautiful, unscripted future together.